November 7th, 2017 will surely be a day to remember. It is a day that surely changed the Sonic fandom for the foreseeable future. The day that Sonic Forces would release. I'm not gonna go into the whole nitty gritty of this game's backstory, but for a quick TLDR, after 4 years or so of no new modern Sonic game, as this was during the era of Sonic Boom, the state of the Sonic franchise was left relatively unambiguous, especially after Boom was said to be a massive failure. More on that later. However, we would later get the reveal of Sonic Mania and Project Sonic 2017 as a part of Sonic's 25th anniversary party back in 2016, the latter of which being named Sonic Forces later on in development. There was a massive hype cycle for Sonic Forces throughout the following year leading up to the game's release, and when the game came out, the reception was insanely mixed. While some people enjoyed it well enough, the common criticisms were that the game was overly automated, it was way too short, the game had a real bad case of false advertising. But the main thing you would hear across the board was that the game was a disappointment. Even to people who were more neutral or positive on the game, expected so much more given what was being advertised. The game not only had a lot to live up to based on its year-long hype cycle, but the return of the mainline series after Boom, the next evolution of the Boost formula, the successor to games like Unleashed, Colors, and Generations. And because of the hiatus that would soon follow this game's release, the general perception warped on Sonic Forces. What was once considered a mostly mediocre Sonic game would later become arguably the most universally hated. People even going as far as to say that it's the worst game to ever be developed by Sonic Team. And I can't lie and say that I wasn't in that boat for the longest time, because I was. I bought the game a few days after it came out, and I thought it was okay. I did beat it at my local McDonald's the following morning, so take that as you will. But upon replaying it over and over and over again throughout the rest of the year, I started to see a lot of the game's issues, and my opinion of it dwindled in the span of a few months. And by the time 2018 rolled around, I grew to despise Sonic Forces. However, a few weeks ago, I did pick the game back up for the first time in a few years. And honestly, I still think the game is pretty fucking bad, but I can't help but feel a little bit bad for Sonic Forces. Not enough to where I think the game is automatically fantastic now, no, far from it. But with how people use Forces to feel this sort of anxiety with every new Sonic game, as even if they're at least a little bit excited, they're setting themselves up for failure. And with how people seem to doom post about recent games like Sonic Racing Crossroads and Shadow Generations, only to cite Sonic Forces as the reason why. It's a case of Forces practically playing the same role as 06 back in the 2000s, where fans are so caught up in how disappointing one game is, they write almost every game afterwards as another potential failure. That is until we get another game that is universally praised by the public. And even then, there will still be people who will go with rock bottom expectations for every new Sonic product released, thinking that the franchise will eventually go down another dark path and prepare for the worst. It shows a lack of faith in the franchise, and the more I thought about it, a lack of understanding on why Sonic Forces ended up in the state that it was released in. Let me explain. Now, keep in mind, not everything I say here has been fully confirmed or anything like that, just speculation based on key events that have been made public. Now, let's rewind back to 2013. With the Nintendo Wii U not doing so great, Sega struck a deal with Nintendo. As for the following 3 Sonic titles, the series would release exclusively on the Nintendo Wii U or 3DS as opposed to being multi-platform. The 3 games that come out of the deal were Sonic Lost World, which would later release on Steam after the Wii U's discontinuation, Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games, which is going to be an exclusive either way, so what the fuck was the point of that? And Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, which was the game that undoubtedly got screwed over the most from this deal. See, Sonic Boom was already a bit of a controversial topic, as Sega didn't really make anything about Boom clear, like, at all. For a while, we didn't know exactly what Boom meant to Sonic. Was it a total rebrand, a reboot, a subsection? Did it go alongside the main series, or did it further replace it? What also didn't help is that for 3 years, the only Sonic-related content we would be treated to were mobile games and Sonic Boom, which, shocker, alienated almost everybody following the series at this point. And Sega had massive plans for Boom, as it was a sub-franchise made with more Western influence for a new generation. They had plans for many things regarding the Boom brand, such as toy lines, movies, cartoons, and several video games. But what does this have to do with Nintendo? Well, Boom's development cycle is rather infamous for how poorly managed the whole project was, both on the inside development and the outside clarification on what this meant to the series. Boom was originally set to launch on next-gen consoles such as the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, but due to the exclusivity deal with Nintendo, there had to be a massive overhaul in the development scene. Therefore, massive changes needed to be made in order to meet the game's deadline. The studio developing Boom, Big Red Button, even had to go as far as to outsource the game engine it was running on in order to get it working on the Wii U. Mind you, all of this is happening when the game was already very deep in development, with roughly 70% of the employees being laid off to cut costs. And by now, you probably already know how the story ends. Rise of Lyric ended up being the worst sold Sonic game in history, a complete commercial and critical failure, and it was an overall gigantic loss for Sega as a whole. Not only the company suffered a loss of over $100 million, but the failure of Boom even caused Sega to lose a good portion of their staff, laying off roughly 300 employees. Okay, but Hatman, what does this have to do with Sonic Forces? Well, for those of you who need to refresh, Sonic Forces was set to be in development right after Sonic Lost World, which was also around the time that Boom was initially teased to the public. However, a good 60 to 70% of its development time was said to be spent developing the Hedgehog Engine 2 for next generation consoles. And given everything that was happening with Boom during that time, it honestly wouldn't surprise me that the failure of Boom most likely put a dent in Forces' budget and resources. That's probably why it took longer to develop the Hedgehog Engine 2 than expected. Hell, by the time we got that teaser during Sonic's 25th anniversary, there was barely 25% of the actual game being made. You know that part of the trailer where it says from the team that brought you Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations? And it turns out hardly anybody who worked on those two games worked on the development of Forces? Well, firstly I want to say that maybe that was all misinterpreted. I feel what they were trying to allude to with that trailer is that this was indeed the next mainline release developed by the main Sonic team. And I feel Colors and Generations were highlighted in particular wasn't for publicity or for people to trust them, but shocker, they were the last two Boost games to be released before Forces. Like it or not, Colors and Generations are more inline comparisons than something like Sonic Lost World or Sonic Heroes. Opinions on each respective game aside, these three are quite literally nothing alike. So of course it would only make sense for Forces to be compared to other Boost games. Not to mention there's the possibility that some of the original staff could have actually been a part of the development cycle in early stages. But the failure of Boom, loss of revenue, and massive layoffs most likely put a wrench in Sonic Team's plans and resources. Again, Boom's failure had a massive impact on Sega and its entirety, not just a single division. Again, this is mostly speculation, but I do think there's a good amount of evidence here that supports my theory regarding Forces' development. So what was the point of this video? To talk badly about Boom, to defend Forces, to point out a rough part in Sega's history? No, this is all to say that I think Sonic will be okay. Yes, I think Sonic Forces is a bad game. Yes, Boom was a very rough era. But look at where we are now, it's nothing like that anymore. The Sonic franchise has been the most successful it's ever been because of the movies. More money and resources have been poured into each game's budget. And while not entirely, the games have mostly been received positively amongst general audiences, with Sonic Team still trying to compromise and listen to feedback to further improve their games. I think we forget how lucky we are that Sonic has managed to pull through the worst. We can forget how fascinating it is that after something as disastrous as Sonic Boom, Sonic is stronger than ever before. And while it's easy to make fun of them for wanting to surpass Mario given how they don't make the best decisions sometimes, it tells me that people at Sega and Sonic Team especially are confident, and they have that strive to make Sonic the very best it can be. Look, I get it if you're scared, I get it if you're worried, and I get it if you don't fully trust Sonic Team or Sega. But if we want this series to keep doing super well, then we gotta give them credit where it's due and keep an open mind. We're past Sonic Forces, we're past Sonic Boom, we are way past Sonic 06. So do what Sonic would do, and just move forward. That was actually so f***ing corny. I'm so sorry, y'all. I'll see myself out. One more thing I want to say, I'm low-key interested in giving Digital Circus another shot, and I might make a video on it when that time comes. This is just an excuse to end the video.